Coming up next on Access Framingham TV is Framingham Fan to Fan, where we discuss all things sports in Framingham. Today we'll talk Framingham High School Dance Team with guest coach Angela Rodriguez and its captain Ivy Jolie Camacho. Stay tuned. It's going to be energetic and rhythmic. You're going to love it. This is Framingham Fan to Fan on Access Framingham TV. Hi, I'm Dave Hornfischer, a Framingham sports fan, and I'm pleased to host this interview show whose purpose is to highlight those who are involved in Framingham sports at all levels. We hope through this show to increase awareness and ideally fan support of these fun sporting events, and also to help use sports to achieve our station's goal of building community. Today I'm pleased to welcome Angela Rodriguez and Ivy Jolie Camacho from the Framingham Women's Dance Team. Angela, the coach, why don't we start with you? And tell us a little bit about the Framingham High School Dance Team, what its purpose is in the world of sports at the high school. And
we are a co-ed varsity sport, and we have many roles in the school. We support other sports like football and basketball by performing at their games, and then we also do our own competitions later in our season.
So one of the issues, and I know this is an issue that goes beyond Framingham, is whether a dance team is a varsity sport, a club sport, or an art form versus a sport. Let's just get that cleared out of the way right at the beginning. Why are you on a sports show?
We are 100% a varsity sport. The athleticism that this team takes is the same as any other sport. Our kids are in the wellness center doing conditioning. Their athletic abilities are pretty much the same as everybody else in the athletic world, and the fact that we do competitions makes us a varsity sport.
Okay, so how did you personally get started in team dance and get to be the head coach at a big school like Framingham?
I was the captain of my high school and college teams.
Where were they?
My high school team was in Connecticut, and my college team was Boston University. And I graduated, taught for a couple years. I'm still teaching, but the dance team part of my life was really missing. So I started looking for jobs, and Framingham kind of just happened.
You teach at Framingham too?
I don't. I teach in Somerville.
Oh, okay.
Commute all the way to Framingham.
Oh, wow. So that's a lot of frequent flyers. Ivy Jolie, how did you get started in team dance?
So I have been dancing since I was 4 or 5 years old in studio. And when I moved to Framingham, it was about a year before I started high school. So I found out through their athletic website that they had a dance team. So I decided to try out, made the team, quit my studio, and here I am.
So this is athletic. Had you done a lot of gymnastics or anything like that before?
I had never done like anything other than dance, but in my studio I did dance hip hop, and we are a hip hop team, so I wasn't going in blind or anything.
A hip hop team. Well, tell me a little bit about that. I hadn't thought of that question before, but well, what's it mean to be a hip hop team? Do the teams dance to different kinds of music, or?
It's different music. It's a different kind of style. The technical pieces are a little bit different. When you watch our video, you can see the style's definitely different. It's a lot lower. And then there are some gymnastics-like pieces that come into play. A lot of the tricks and some of the lifts that we do are different than other styles. Okay, well, you guys have been very successful, your team, as we have a picture coming up of the team. Why don't you tell me a little bit, Angela, about the team's goals? Is your goal just simply to win the state championship every year? Or? No, we actually strategically don't set goals to win. Just because we never know what we're going to compete against. We're trying to beat ourselves. So the scores that we get from previous years, we're trying to get better and better. And we're trying to include more things that are difficult. So getting more of our athletes to do some of those harder skills each and every year. So it's kind of a competition against ourselves. So it looks like we have 17 or 18 people on the team here. This was the picture of when you won the championship. Yeah. How did that happen to come together? That's the MSAA. What's the MSAA? That's the Massachusetts Scholastic Athletic Association? Yep, that's the state competition that we do every year. Okay, so in terms of putting your team together in the beginning of the year, how do you go about recruiting and selecting
the team. That can't be easy. Are there a lot of young women at Framingham High who would like to be a part of this?
Yeah, we do get a somewhat big turnout depending on the season. Usually it's a little bit bigger in the fall season. And although it's not required to have any dance background whatsoever, we are looking for the coachability piece, being able to blend in with our current team, kind of the potential to develop some of the skills that we'll need down the road. And
then you told me you have 3 captains. How do the captains go about getting chosen and picked? Are they people who were there from prior years and kind of evolved into it, or is that an internal secret?
No, it's not. It's actually a pretty well thought out process. Some of it comes from the feedback of members of the team. There's a lot of individual talking, and a lot of it depends on their ability to take feedback and to give feedback productively so that others can grow with them.
So Ivy, Jolie, what do you see as the role of the captain?
To me, a role of being a captain is like kind of like setting an example, setting that mindset, a positive mindset, and like inside and outside of practice, kind of like being that person to keep everyone on track, make sure that, you know, outside distractions don't come into the practice area, and not just being like a leader, but also making sure that your team knows that if they need anything or if they need any kind of support, that like they always have like kind of like peers to go to for things like that, because sometimes it can be like a little intimidating to have to go to a coach. So having a captain, I think, kind of sets like a precedence, like a person that you can go to for help.
And having 3 captains, then you all kind of get to play different things or relate differently with different people, probably. And
yeah, they help me out a lot too. I have some volunteer staff, some in and out. Like I have a alumni who comes back and helps me, and I have a friend who helps me periodically, but it's really just me. So having these 3 is kind of like the next layer of like peer coaching.
And they're in the school all day. But you don't have a JV team or a freshman team right now.
Not yet.
Do you have enough interest to create that, or is that
are
there other issues?
So no, I think that it comes down to a couple things. Like we don't have the staff quite yet. We don't have all the logistics in place quite yet, and we're working on some of the youth programs to get there. Like our Fuller Dance Club this winter and last winter has 6th through 8th graders, and it's run by 6 or 7 of these guys. And
that's great.
To kind of gain interest, but also at the same time make it kind of a training program if they are interested in the future. So hopefully we can get those programs to Cameron and Walsh and do some even younger clinics sometime in the spring.
Well, you mentioned before connecting with the whole high school and dancing at, I assume you meant basketball games and football games. Are there other games, do you dance at the wrestling team events?
No.
Because that's a big mat and all that. That strikes me as a...
No, but that's not saying we can't.
Not a bad idea, maybe, huh? Okay. So if I did want to see you perform, I guess the easiest way would be to go to a basketball game, right? Both men and women games?
We do the boys' games and the girls' games at home. And then later in the season, we have competitions. Most of them are elsewhere.
So is it just the state competition or the championship, or are there other ones that are during the season ones, right?
Early February, we have some invitationals.
Okay.
Some of the colleges put them on.
Wow.
And there are some college teams and high school teams that both compete. And then later in the season comes
You compete against college teams?
Not
No,
against
it's a separate
them.
division.
Yeah, it's a separate division.
Okay. How do you think you do against a college team? You guys
Last
are good.
winter, we, at one of the college competitions, we got the, what was it called? The Grand Champion Award, which means that our scores were higher than all teams there, including college teams. So that was pretty exciting.
Okay, well, we're teasing the audience about what you guys actually do. We've got this video, I think, which was of your championship performance.
In the fall.
We'll put that up, and then we can just talk a little bit about it. I think we'll run it twice, and maybe we can just watch it once. Here we are. This was taking place where? At Hudson High? Yeah. And there you are in your black... No, that's gymnastic. Who's that being lifted?
That is Jessie.
That's Jessie.
Jessie.
Falk.
You ever drop her? Practice?
No.
No.
Not really.
So what's going on here?
You can just see, like, we try to be as uniform as possible, and then when things start to change, we make it really visual and throw in some of those tricks to get the audience excited and improve our difficulty.
And that's you now in the middle and the front, Ivy Jolie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the mix between boys and girls here?
We have one boy right now.
Only one? Okay. Is this typically a women's sport?
It is female dominated, but I have seen more and more boys become a part of the dance team world in the past 5-10 years.
This is rhythmic, I'll tell you. I've seen you at football games, but it's so much more impressive seeing it in a gym. You're making me want to go to a basketball game now. Not that I didn't want it before. Is this a tough move? Wow, that looks...
It takes the whole team, for sure.
This really is a team sport. I mean, when you see a football team, you know, you all have to play together, but getting...
Yeah, it's the same thing for us. If not every single person is doing their part, it can't come together the way that it's supposed to.
When you have 18 of you, you seem to have a lot of fan support there. Was that a lot of people from Framingham?
The video was taken from our family section. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So.
Well, that was great. And then you had, how many judges judging this?
5, I
okay.
believe, this time.
Is there typically the Russian judge who, granted, I gave everybody a low score?
There is.
Do you know the judges beforehand?
I don't, but I know
okay.
that there's often a judge that scores a little bit lower, and there's often a judge that scores a little bit higher, and they drop our lowest and highest to make the averages a little more accurate.
Yeah, you gave me a copy of the score sheet here, and the scoring sheet, and one was execution. Are there any of these whether difficult execution of movement, execution of skills? Synchronization, boy, you guys sure were synchronized.
That's a tough one. We worked really, really hard to get high scores in synchronization.
And your routine really is one that has a lot of work on that one. Spacing, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, it just is. If you saw in the video, we move around a lot on the floor and kind of change where people are and what the overall formation looks like. And if they're not symmetrical or if people are out of place and it's obvious, you lose points there.
And the next one's communication with the audience, right? And that helps to have lots of fans there then, right?
Yeah, the energy piece, and like they use a lot of their faces to do some of the choreography too, as funny as that sounds. But a lot of it comes from how big their movements are and how much it reads to the audience, but then it also comes down to the faces that they're making.
Then we had creativity and musicality, originality. Is this, do you do a new routine every year?
Every season we do.
Every season, and oh yeah, you have 2 seasons a year. And this championship you won was for the
fall season.
Okay, and that just ended
in November. Yeah.
Okay, and then your next one is going when from?
Our state competition's in early March.
Okay, and then that says routine staging. That was use of varied formations, creative ways you move from one set to another.
There are ways to keep the routine interesting. Like if we were to stand in 3 lines for the entirety of the routine, people would probably get kind of bored. So.
Well, you sure had a variety of stuff there.
That's the goal.
A mix of gymnastics and synchronization, and then it talks about complexity of movement. So pretty much like figure skating, I guess, where they say that a routine can potentially score higher than if you just came out there and stood in the line and
that's where kind of where those tricks come from, or that lift where it takes the whole team to lift 2 or 3 people. Right. It ups our difficulty scores.
And then the last one is overall impression, which even includes music, costume, choreography. You have a choreographer that works with you?
She also went to BU. She graduated a little later than I did, but yeah, she comes in and she makes up the entire routine, and we just kind of take it and tweak it as we go and make it work for us.
Well, that's great. Why don't we have that run again? Now that we're all ready to be judges on all 10 of these factors here, I think I saw definitely a 9 on one of those there before. But you said you don't get 10s very often.
We did manage to get a 10 in overall impression last season, which was pretty awesome.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, I can see why. I mean, it's really. I like the white lines on the shirts that all kind of come together too. That's where the costume, I think, really, or was that arms?
Those are arms.
Oh, those are arms.
Totally arms.
I thought it was a long sleeve shirt with a white line.
Those are arms.
I mean, that was impressive. I mean, it really fooled me.
We do try to use the clothing to our advantage, though. Nothing that's super distracting.
But boy, those arms, at least on this video, every time I see it, they look like a...
We try.
Yeah.
If you saw what it looked like when they learned it earlier in the season, it was definitely not this. So it takes a
yeah.
lot of work to get here.
How often do you practice?
4 times a week, typically, because we also do basketball games, so it takes up another day.
And so what's the mix of your team between classes? Mostly?
We have a really heavy junior class right now, but it varies from year to year on which class is kind of the most, what people decide to do with their year.
And you're a junior, Ivy Jolie?
I am a junior, yes.
And were you on the team as a freshman?
I was.
Has your role changed other than being a captain? Or, I mean, your position in the team, or was the routine so different?
The routines have always been, we have a different routine, a different kind of, not style, but like a different vibe every season.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll add some clapping to that. I'll tell you, on behalf of everybody in Framingham who's watching this, and this will be on YouTube eventually too, so people around the world will be saying that they saw this. Let's just talk a little bit about the state championship. We had that photo before of you guys with the banner. So let's talk a little bit about how that came to be. How many teams were in it? It was held where?
It was at Hudson.
Held in Hudson.
Yep, Hudson High School.
From all over Massachusetts? Or
yeah, there were 5 teams in our division. I want to say there were about 15 or so varsity teams across the board, but 5 in our division.
All from schools our Framingham size mostly, or?
Maybe some of them might be a little bit smaller, but mostly, yeah.
So
Ivy Jolie, was that sort of the highlight of the season for you, or?
Well, winning feels great, obviously. I think that kind of like some of like the highlights for the season isn't not necessarily winning, but knowing that we really went out there and we did everything in our power to make ourselves look as good as possible. I think most of the pride comes from when you see the video of states versus looking back at like the first video you took the week we learned it. And I think most of like that pride comes from seeing how the work over the months of practice pays off at the end.
Do you video yourself when you're practicing?
Yeah, we do a lot of different kinds of feedback to improve. There's a lot of video. It's kind of like homework, so to speak. Some commenting on the videos, bringing those ideas to practice. There's only one of me, so we use everybody on the team to kind of peer coach each other.
Sure, you must have a feel when you're in the middle of doing one of these that somebody else isn't quite right or something. And
yeah, we do a lot of peer feedback too. Like we split the team in half. Everyone has a buddy, and for that season, everyone is responsible for their buddy and making sure their buddy feels motivated and confident and feels productive in practice by giving them really constructive criticism, but also telling them what they're doing right.
Well, that's a concept that could be applied to a lot of sports. I've interviewed a lot of people on this show, a lot of different sports, and I've never quite heard that idea. It just strikes me as something that if the coach tells you it's one thing, or if somebody else who you don't like tells you something, but if you had a buddy you could talk to and they'd say, gee, you know, you were just a little something here. Or
yeah, we do it every practice.
That's terrific. I think that's a great concept. You have motivating messages like Bill Belichick tells his team to, you know, do your job. I suppose that fits here too, but.
It definitely does. We focus a lot on control, what you can control, that kind of deal. We see a lot of teams come in every season and bring something we totally didn't expect, but if we were to spend all of our energy trying to figure out what everyone else was going to bring, we wouldn't be able to focus on what we need to do. So that's probably one of the bigger ones that comes from me. And then there's also like do it for yourself and do it for your team, because in the grand scheme of things, the cohesive unit of this team really shines through when everybody is truly supportive of each other.
Has that message changed for you as a performer on the team, or a member of the team, I guess I should say, over the 3 years that you've been doing this now?
I don't think so. I think it's always been like my freshman year, you know, it was a new team dynamic. There was only 12 of us and no one really knew what to expect. Framingham hadn't really been as big of a competitor as compared to other teams, and so it's always been since I joined this team at least to worry about ourselves and make sure that we look as best as we can, because at the end of the day, that's all we can do and that's all we can control, and that's the only thing that's going to make us feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Ivy's the one who started at the same time I did. She's the only one who's still here from the very beginning of my
So you've been coaching now 3 years here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, you say, yeah. So what do you remember about your experience as a dance performer in college or in high school? Did you win a championship, or did you?
High school, we won some things, but looking back, I don't really remember the wins or the coming super close or any of that. I just remember the amount of work that it took to get from the beginning to where we wanted to be, and I remember how the end of every season felt, and how you knew if you had a really successful season based on like the team dynamic and the energy that you put in. And I think that's why my coaching style revolves a lot around team dynamic, moral support, and then pushing yourself past your limits.
Mm-hmm. And then in college you were at BU, which you mentioned has a bit of reputation in this.
Yeah, BU's dance team is incredible. When I was on the team, we were kind of on the rise. We went to nationals, we placed at nationals, we were top 10, but years after that, BU's won national championships. They've been like a huge motivating factor in me continuing my career with dance team. Mm-hmm. And I think that aspect of things is where the pushing yourself athletically comes from, because that team really showed me that you can push yourself way further than you think you can.
And at the collegiate level, is dance typically a team there? Or is it a mix between, is that still a fight that you're all still fighting a little bit?
Yeah, it depends. I think it depends on which school too. I know for us at the time, we were considered spirit athletics, which is not very clear. And we were kind of on the bottom of the totem pole of athletics, but on the top of clubs, and like it was kind of, we were trying to figure out where we were supposed to be.
So this isn't cheerleading?
No.
Would you have thought to be a cheerleader?
I think I considered cheering once when I was 7,
Okay.
and then
all right.
and then it like never came.
And then the other piece, the other end of this is gymnastics, right? Which
yes.
which is also a team sport at some. Does Framingham has a gymnastics team?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have to get them on here eventually. And so did you do? You didn't mention gymnastics when you were growing up, or?
No, I never did.
That's a whole different thing.
I've always just been a dancer through and through.
I mean, the dance element of the floor exercise in particular in gymnastics is very similar to what you all were.
Yeah, our team is, I like the dynamic of our team because we have some kids that come in with dance background, we have some kids that come in with gymnastics background, we have some kids that come with no background. And it's my job, and eventually all of our jobs, to get everyone on the same page and utilize the strengths. So people who come in with some gymnastics ability utilize that, while also utilizing kids like Ivy who come in with some serious dance background, and trying to get everybody together on the same page.
You mentioned your background was as a studio dancer. There wasn't a team concept at the middle school level, and then you mentioned, Angela, before that you're thinking of, or they're working toward have a program at Fuller now. Let's just talk about how we go about developing championship teams here, and starting at a young age. Yeah, I think when young girls start dancing, it's not dance team that they're thinking about. Or you said when you started at 4, what were you doing it just because it was fun, or your mother wanted you to, or your father did? Or?
No, I come from a very musical family. My dad is a musician. My mom doesn't like to say she does, but she definitely sings. And my grandmother was a dancer. And so ever since I was little, like as soon as I could toddle around, I twirled around, and I begged my mom and my grandmother to put me in dance lessons as soon as I was old enough to like join a studio, and so they did, and I never let them stop letting me go to dance. Okay,
and that's kind of how you got to be a captain here. So I mean, there's probably a lot of hopefully there's a lot of mothers and fathers too looking out in TV land here. And so, what do you have to, is that what you have to do to get to be on a high school dance team, and then eventually a university dance team?
No,
well,
I mean,
what's the path here for?
as of right now, like a lot of our kids come in with no dance background. It just comes down to, can they move in a way that seems like they can blend with our team, and can they be coached to blend a little bit better than they might right now? But down the road, hopefully we can develop some of those youth programs so that we're getting them younger and training them earlier, so that when they come to us, they have a lot more of those skills, and I won't have to teach as many of them at the high school level. I'll get them earlier.
Well, our time is kind of running down here. Let's go out again and just talk a little bit over of that great video of you guys winning your championship. When you have a championship performance, I think people just never get to see enough of it. I still want to look at the last out of the World Series over and over, and so just want to talk a little bit about some of your memories of what was happening here when this was going on. What were you as a coach worrying about? Did you have a worry?
I always have a worry, but I mean, I'm always worried that, you know, something won't hit, or, you know, if somebody messes up, they're going to show it on their face. Mess ups happen constantly, and we try over and over again to practice. Just keep going, and like nobody will notice.
Right.
I stand behind the judges during this, and I'm half doing the routine with them. I'm half screaming. I'm a mess, but I just felt in this case, every time something hit, or every time a visual looked really great, I got more and more excited, and it just kept happening, which is how I knew by the end of it that they totally nailed it, and this was the best that they did in all season, win or not win.
How about you, Ivy Jolie? I mean, are you thinking when you're doing this, or is this just totally instinctive?
So I find that when we compete and when we perform, I just black out.
You're in a zone.
I couldn't tell you anything about any of like what it was like to do any of this. I feel like you're always so focused, and you get so much nerves and kind of like nervousness build up before you get on the floor, and then like something happens like once the music starts that like your body kind of just takes over.
That's what practice does too.
Yeah.
Gary Burton, the world famous vibraphone player, told me once that when he's doing a performance, he says, and he's got his 4 mallets going on the thing, he says, you know, sometimes I'm just amazed by the ballet that's going on in front of me. You must kind of be almost in that thing there too.
Yeah, muscle memory starts to kick in for sure.
Yeah, I mean, are you aware of your teammates when you're there and you're in the middle of this?
I can definitely, I think the only thing I'm really aware of when we're performing is the audience and the reactions.
Do you get a different reaction sometimes to the same routine in a different place?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
depends.
some audiences will respond to the gymnastic parts, and others to the synchronization, I would think. And, well, we're going out of here on an exciting moment. That's the gymnastics, or that's the Framingham the Framingham co-ed dance team from Framingham High School, the Massachusetts State champions in the fall of 2018. You guys were great guests, and the video speaks for itself as to what you're doing. You've convinced me it's totally a varsity sport, and so you got one new fan, and I'm going to be looking to see one of your performances.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Framingham folks out there in TV land, come back and watch Framingham Fan to Fan. We're on every night except Wednesday at 8:30 and Saturday mornings at 7:30 in the morning. It's a lot of fun. You never know what we're going to get into, and today was a great show. So tell your friends. Good night.